And welcome back, everybody. We are here, Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC, sponsored by El Gato. I myself am Costa, and of course, you recognize the. Which way are you now? The lovely Lou, and of course, we're going to talk about it. Gimli, which is on camera. Our guest of honor.
Mhm.
Uh, I was going to ask you, Lou, what you thought about the last match, but do you think we could maybe get some commentary from Gimli?
Well, if you could have heard him in that previous game, he was certainly trying to do his own version of commentary, screaming at the door to be let into the study. So it sounded like he wanted in on the Pokemon action, which is exactly why we've got him here. We know that he is a firm favorite on the Victory Road streams, and he wants to obviously give his opinion on the commentary as well. But so far, this broadcast has been amazing. We've seen some really good games, a little bit of creativity on some of the teams, a few little standard things, but they've been very solid, kind of commanding 2-0. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next match is going to bring.
Yeah, exactly that. And it is going to be the second match between Thailand and South Korea. Of course, we're able to have a bit of a sneak peek with our first stream match, but now this is the second one, which is going to be between Thitipong versus Jeongso, sorry. As we're going to be seeing Thitipong rocking with that Xerneas, Incineroar, Entei, female Indeedee, Venusaur, and the Torkoal. So you got a couple of very nice calls laid up here. You got a bit of a pseudo trick room answer, if you may, accompanied by that Venusaur, which we don't often see anymore in Series 10.
That's the thing. Venusaur was one of those key Pokemon when we were in a Dynamax format. And I love a weather core and having this kind of sun mode with the Torkoal Venusaur being able to utilize fast modes and slow modes due to both of those kind of natural speeds of the Pokemon when the chlorophyll's activated and Torkoal's just slow. It's a little tortoise. I think can give a player so much flexibility. And when you pair in Pokemon that are great support Pokemon, for example, the Indeedee with that redirection, the Incineroar having utility to fake out, means that not only can you use your kind of Suncore Pokemon well, but you can also support that restricted in Xerneas. And we sort of mentioned it a little bit earlier on. But again, if you can get that Geomancy boost up, then you can start steamrolling through a team.
Well, exactly that. And in this situation, that is what you need to try to capitalize as much as you can with your restricted, especially with their partners as well. As we're going to be going on the other side of the field, checking out Jeongso and a Moongus. So not your typical core that you would expect with this kind of archetype of a team.
Yeah, you've got kind of a very standard Firewater grass core there, where you've got obviously the Kyogre, the Incineroar, and the Rillaboom. And one thing that I've kind of noticed is when people are running that particular type triangle, there's always this kind of addition of a strong electric type, whether it's going to be Regieleki or Zapdos that has been obviously coming into the fray recently, kind of making this a sort of square core as opposed to a little triangle. But it really is the unique Pokemon there of the Mimikyu. I think we got to feature Mimikyu a little bit last week, but it can really get up to some disruption. And particularly if you wanted to go for something like a Trick Room mode and use that Amoonguss, then it does give you the utility to be able to do so. But I would say if you wanted to go Trick Room on this particular team, you'd expect that Kyogre to be the more sort of slow and bulky variant there.
Yeah, and being piloted by a very experienced player as well, Korean national champion of senior division in 2018 and the Trainers Cup runner-up of 2021. So we're going to go ahead, go straight into the footage, which of course we are going to be seeing it. Or not. We're going to be seeing ourselves for a bit. Apologies. No. So we're going to be seeing Thitipong's point of view, which is, of course, going to be representing Thailand. So, Lou, like you mentioned, Xerneas is such a pivotal Pokemon. You want to try to be in a position where you can try to set it up or even bring it in the late game here. As we see that Thitipong's opting to maybe bring it in the back, wanting to go for that pressure with the Sun mode versus a Kyogre.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to have your weather wall going here, but I think it's always quite brave leading out with your sort of weather Pokemon. But when it's a Torkoal, you know it's going to be slower 9 times out of 10, particularly against a Kyogre, unless there's some big shenanigans going on here. Then, you're going to be able to get that speed up. The only thing you have to worry about is the potential of the Kyogres in the back, that maybe it switches in and then overwrites that ability. And obviously the boost to the Venusaur. But then, of course, you can, try and predict that. You can go for, one of those grass type moves with your Venusaur and deal some big damage and catch that Kyogre on the switch in. I think the critical thing is going to be the Xerneas, though. Even in the back, if you can get it boosted up, getting that +2 special defense in the face of a Kyogre, things are going to be very difficult then. Kyogre's not going to be dealing as much damage to that bulkier Xerneas.
Yeah, well, exactly that. And you do have that Venusaur, which is very good up against that kind of sort of matchup because it does have that grass and poison typing. And talking about that typing, we see its nemesis on the other side of the field. Amoonguss being led with the Incineroar for Jeongso, whilst on Thitipong side, we do see, as we had seen before, that Sun mode of the Venusaur and Torkoal.
Yeah, the interactions here between the Amoonguss and the Torkoal, I think, are going to be critical. Obviously, two very slow Pokemon here. And the Amoonguss certainly in a position to maybe get a Spore down onto that opposing Torkoal there and sort of negate some of the damage it's able to do. The Incineroar, though, in a good position to go for something like a Fake Out, but then you have to worry about the Indeedee switching in from the back. If it can set up that Psychic Terrain, then that Fake Out is going to be null and void. And that's exactly what I think we're seeing Torkoal doing.
Oh, as you are correct, that female Indeedee is going to be switched and brought straight onto the field. Bringing, of course, its Psychic Surge in turn with that terrain. So no Fake Out for Incineroar if it has opted to go for it. But before finding that out, we see the Amoonguss go for that Protect, which means it will not be able to protect itself the following turn, as we see Sleep Powder coming out and the reveal of Safety Goggles on that Incineroar, which allowed it to be completely unaffected by those powder moves, whilst also getting a very crucial Snarl off, being able to not only potentially break that Venusaur's Focus Sash, if it is indeed carrying one, but also dropping that special attack to -1 for both the Indeedee and that Venusaur.
Yeah, brilliant turn there for Jeongso, particularly with that Incineroar, you know, not going for the Fake Out, not falling into the trap of being caught with the Psychic Terrain, and going for the Snarl, not only reducing the special attack of that Venusaur, breaking the Focus Sash, but also on that Indeedee. And if Torkoal had stayed on, obviously we know that's predominantly a special attacker, it would not have appreciated that Snarl either. Amoonguss as well, just going for the Protect, Incineroar, Safety Goggles, some really good information there for Thitipong. And here we see the redirection as well, just going to protect the Venusaur in this next turn.
Yeah, may even be an indication of what kind of item this Indeedee is carrying, as the Earth Power will be targeting that Incineroar down. Not quite enough to bring down halfway of its HP, but still very good damage, respectable, as the Flare Blitz is going to be coming out. Not enough to pick up the KO there on the Indeedee, and there it is, ladies and gents. The Safety Goggles reveal, which is going to be able to completely nullify that Spore from the Amoonguss.
Yeah, Safety Goggles a piece on this team, and both coming out at critical moments. We've seen Sleep Powder and Spore utilized by both these trainers. It now comes down to Pokemon going on the offensive, and Indeedee actually not going to listen to me at all and going for the Protect. But what is Venusaur going to do? Looks like an Earth Power.
Oh, Earth Power once again, but not enough to pick up the KO, and we don't see any Berry proc. Of course, because of that Safety Goggles we saw revealed in the first turn there, Snarl comes out, will now be bringing that Venusaur's special attack down to -2 as the Amoonguss goes for the support. It goes for the Pollen Puff into that Incineroar, and from the moment that it was within range to get KO'd, it is no longer the case, and this Venusaur is at -2. It's not going to be able to deal as much damage as it once could.
Again, really liking the play here from Jeongso, knowing that the Indeedee, even if it did want to go on the offensive there, was something like an Expanding Force, thanks to the Snarl that it took, Amoonguss is going to be able to survive that nicely, so it was able to go for that Pollen Puff safely into the Incineroar. And again, Venusaur having a special attack reduced means Incineroar is going to be able to take those Earth Powers. I think if you're Thitipong here, you need to be able to make a switch. You need to, you know, bring your Venusaur back, reset those special attack drops so that it can be a little bit more offensive later on. You still have your Torkoal there as well, so you can reset the weather if needed, so that Venusaur is going to be able to capitalize in that sun. But Indeedee at the moment as well, you're going for those redirections, but particularly with the Flare Blitzes in the sun, that's going to really, really hurt. So Indeedee just giving Venusaur a helping hand, much needed.
Yeah, because the Venusaur is wanting to try to guarantee at least a 2-hit KO from that range onto the Incineroar, as Incineroar does what it always wants to. It goes for that disruption, goes for the Snarl, but not only does it bring that Venusaur now down to -3 of its special attack, it gets rid of that female Indeedee. It is no longer in this game one, as the Pollen Puff once again comes out from this Amoonguss. As you can see, it's a very passive situation in a way where either trainer wants to try to make sure that they don't give full momentum to their opponents based on any sort of switch-ins or switch-outs.
Yeah, this Venusaur, to be honest, it just had a little bit of a useless turn there in a sense. It can't really do too much damage here. We know that it can't go for anything into the Amoonguss necessarily, steal anything significant. And this is where things now get really difficult for Thitipong here, because you've got your Xerneas on the field, and your Xerneas does not want to be facing down against an Amoonguss that is very free to go for a Spore. You don't have the utility of your redirection anymore because Indeedee has been KO'd. So knowing that you've only really got the Venusaur and the Torkoal left to play, I'd say you need to get that Venusaur out of there. It's not a threat. Jeongso isn't going to have to worry about it and is basically free to start targeting down against that Xerneas, particularly with the sun in the sky. The Incineroar can capitalize on that, boosting up its fire type moves as well. We know that even with the Geomancy boost, it's not going to get a defense boost, so those Flare Blitzes are going to really, really hurt, particularly if it gets followed up by the Spore. There's just not enough that Xerneas is going to be able to do. So Venusaur is going to make that crucial switch.
Yeah, making the crucial switch there, wanting to try to preserve itself for future turns for any potential Kyogres, as this Torkoal is now on the field, and its partner in crime, Xerneas, now goes for that Protect. But no, the Incineroar completely ignores that slot, wants to try to get rid of that Venusaur if it could, deals a lot of damage, critical hit in the sun, not what you want to see if you fight upon, because every single bit of HP is so crucial on that Torkoal, as the Spore did try to target down that Xerneas, but of course was met with its Protect.
Yeah, and this is the thing, the Torkoal joins the field just as the sun leaves, but in a way that is beneficial because the opposing Incineroar isn't going to have its fire type moves boosted up. Of course, poor Torkoal, wants to be able to utilize them as well. But I think the main thing is going for some potential earth powers here into that Incineroar, remove it from the fray. Xerneas, however, not going to go for any Geomancy boost, straight for the Moonblast into that opposing Incineroar.
Ooh, it goes ahead and deals a very good chunk of damage, brings down its special attack. In this point, maybe a tiny bit crucial because Snarl is, of course, special base, but nevertheless, the special attack drops on both the Xerneas and Torkoal is what is, of course, of importance, as that Amoonguss goes for the Spore now and will force this Xerneas into a turn of guaranteed sleep. In the subsequent turn, of course, as the Heat Wave comes out from the Torkoal, you, of course, can see the fact that there's so much damage output that's been, dropped from all of those Snarls. It does pick up that burn, though, which is quite nice against an Amoonguss, because you want to try to whittle down as much as you can.
Yeah, you can whittle away at Amoonguss, but it can always, of course, switch out, use that Regenerator ability, and Jeongso does have the utility with the Pokemon to do that. This Incineroar has just been an absolute champ at this point, going for Snarl after Snarl, particularly when Thitipong has these 4 special attackers. No matter which Pokemon it's going to be taking a special attack drop as long as it connects. And Amoonguss is just the perfect partner for this Incineroar right now, healing it up every time, reaping the benefits of the fact that the opposing Pokemon have their offensive pressure negated. It's able to just, take these attacks really well. It doesn't worry about taking these heat waves here. There isn't any sun, the special attacks keep hitting, and ultimately Thitipong doesn't really have the utility to be dealing huge damage here thanks to the recovery and the limited offensive pressure that it's got at the moment.
Well, that's exactly it. I feel like Thitipong at some point should have maybe attempted to go for any sort of switch-in in anticipation of the Spore, because you did have the Venusaur, which we are seeing now come onto the field. It could have been used as some sort of switch-in for the Spores in previous turns there. Maybe try to get a bit of momentum, but we are going to be seeing Jeongso go ahead, switch that Amoonguss out. It will be proccing that Regenerator ability to regain at least a third of its HP back. Whilst the Kyogre is now on the field, it does bring the rain, and the Incineroar now opts to go for the parting shot. Targeting down that Venusaur will be dropping its special attack to -1, whilst, of course, most crucially, bringing in that free switch for Jeongso's side, which is, guess what? The Amoonguss, yet again, recovered, had a bit of a break, very nice, refreshing situation there for itself, and, of course, the Earth Power dealing negligible damage there.
This is where things get quite unfortunate for that Venusaur. It's had to take the special attack drop already thanks to the parting shot. And, Kyogre's just going to be in such a prominent position to go for some big, big damage in this situation. There's no Chlorophyll boost. Torkoal's on the field at the moment, and that means that Thitipong has to be able to switch it out in order to reset that sun, meaning the Xerneas would join and be vulnerable to a potential water spout here. So not surprised to see the forfeit being locked in here. And again, in today's Friday stream, we're having a lot of very dynamic game ones, but that's the joy of a best of 3 set. We're going to see a few more.
That's exactly it. And I feel that's at that point, Thitipong just didn't have the correct Pokemon in this match, in this game specifically, because the fact that Amoonguss and Incineroar can completely stomp your strategy and game plan in that scenario, that's not what you want. You want to have
I'm really
those
sorry, I
direct
have
answers.
lost you. Bear with me. Keep going, Costa.
Of course. So, yes, I will continue, of course. But like I just mentioned, it's the fact that even though it was such a passive lead, the Thitipong didn't have answers. And, that Incineroar and Amoonguss just sat on the field. And they just essentially were waiting both for disrupting the opponents, the Pokemon on Thitipong's side with, like the Snarls, the Spores, but also threatening any switch-ins. So that's the most crucial thing there. You need to have those direct answers. Entei personally would have been really good, but it is a tough bring when you are up against a Kyogre.
Yes, exactly. And apologies, my Gimli decided to intervene with my microphone there, but all is good. We are back. And like you said, there's a lot of different predicaments going on here, and there's so much supportive roles from both of these teams. You know, you've got the we saw the amazing support there from the Incineroar providing those snarls, and then also the Amoonguss obviously providing the Pollen Puff there to kind of connect the sort of the health regeneration with also the sort of physical, the special offensive pressure being dropped. But then on the other side, you've got some great supportive Pokemon, you know, in the form of, you know, you've got that Indeedee on there as well. You've got the Entei as well that can provide some really good support. It just comes down to whether they can be utilized and get the ball positioning correct in order to try and take out the win.
Well, exactly that. So, Thitipong's going to have to try to bring it back for their side of the field. We are going to be going into this game too, ladies and gents, as the leads are coming out. And once again, what will you... I mean, go figure at this point, right? Because it just put in so much work, that lead, with the Incineroar and Amoonguss on Jeongso's side. Whilst we are, of course, going to be seeing a switch up on Thitipong's side. Thitipong's going to opt to go for that female Indeedee and the Venusaur, which I quite like, as you're able to get that psych terrain immediately on the field, and more crucially, potentially threaten that Amoonguss unless there's any sort of Rillaboom in the back.
Yeah, I think, again, from Jeongso here, it's really good to kind of have this lead out. We saw how effective it was in game one. And I like the adjustment from Thitipong having the Talk Hole in the back here, because then if that Kyogre does make an appearance, you're able to just switch it in, rechange the weather, and just stop the offensive pressure that Kyogre is capable of. And it just means that you can give yourself that advantage, forcing Jeongso to maybe try and, you know, switch that Pokemon out to reset the rain again. Indeedee here, gonna go straight off with the Helping Hand.
Oh, maybe opting to go for that sneaky KO if possible. Earth Power goes into the Incineroar, but unfortunately is not enough. It does get a special defense drop, though, that may come into play as or I mean, at this point it probably won't, as it's at such a low HP range there. As we do see the Snarl once again coming out, it does connect on both the Indeedee and the Venusaur, but Pollen Puff now from the Amoonguss, the same strategy as we have seen, of course, ladies and gents, in game one, being unleashed, but without range, Lou, I think that might just be enough with another Helping Hand there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, you got the special defense drop there, but we also saw the Snarl come out. So it's a little bit of swings and roundabouts with these stat drops from each side of the field. But Amoonguss, again, you know, not going in the offensive here. There's no point. You know, it's a Venusaur and there's safety goggles there, so there's no point trying to put any Pokemon to sleep. You might as well support this Incineroar. It worked so well in game one, being able to go for those Snarls and just whittle away at your opponent's Pokemon and just put them in a bit of a predicament. But Helping Hand once again.
Here we go. Is the KO gonna be taken onto this Incineroar from that range? It's just enough to go and pick it up. So there goes that Incineroar, which was so disruptive there. Amoonguss, sad and unfortunately goes for that Pollen Puff into what was its partner. Now just a gap right next to it.
Well, Thitipong has certainly changed things up in this game too. Although the Pollen Puff did kind of go into the void there, Kyogre has joined the field, but this is the situation that you want when you know that if the Torkoal is hiding in the back, you can then switch it in, you can change the weather up here. But also, Venusaur's not going to worry at this stage necessarily. You can go for this Helping Hand once again and deal out a good Grass-type move in the form of Grass Knot into that Kyogre.
Oh, wow. Nearly picks up the KO there. Just going to show why Helping Hand is so good with that Indeedee support right next to the Venusaur. Venusaur taking that Ice Beam quite well, actually, as Amoonguss now opting to use Pollen Puff offensively. Goes ahead, gets a critical hit, does pick up the KO, but I feel like from that range, it may have even been enough to pick up the KO, as we actually see a very interesting item of leftovers on that Kyogre.
Yeah, leftovers there, you know, a great item for the kind of those bulkier variants, particularly if there is potentially a Trick Room mode to contend with as well. You can kind of always get that recovery being built up. But honestly, when I saw that Pollen Puff, I thought it was going into the Kyogre again, being like, hey, Amoonguss gonna help out its new partner Pokemon here. But actually, I think the double up was really nice. Just remove that Venusaur, remove the threat of it. Xerneas now coming onto the field. Again, very vulnerable to a potential Spore here. This is where I can probably imagine the Indeedee going on the offensive a little bit more, or going for that supportive redirection. It can either go for something like the Expanding Force, try and pick up the KO against the Kyogre and deal significant damage to the Amoonguss while protecting the Xerneas, or if you want to try and get that Geomancy up, redirect away that Spore. You know you've got the safety goggles, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, exactly that. As Xerneas is going to opt to go for the Protect, so not wanting to fall victim to any sort of Spore this turn, as Origin Pulse follows suit immediately after from this Kyogre, does connect with that female Indeedee. Is it enough to pick up the KO? It is not, which means this Expanding Force is very free to come out right now from this Indeedee. Does connect with both Pokemon, of course. Kyogre just surviving as the Pollen Puff, wow, what a support Pokemon that is going to be able to go ahead and regain so much vital HP for the Kyogre to even benefit off from the residual HP gained from the leftovers.
I mean, that Incineroar, it got KO'd early in the game, but what it did is having such an effect at the minute. Having that Snarl on that Indeedee just meant the Kyogre was just shy of being KO'd, leaving Jeongso in the battle here at this point. Moonblast just going to come straight out from the Xerneas into the Kyogre. Going to be reducing its special attack as Kyogre does retaliate with that Origin Pulse.
Wow, and the Indeedee evades that Origin Pulse. Of course, the Xerneas does not, but more crucially, that Moonblast being able to drop its special attack there means that, of course, the Xerneas was able to run away with more HP there than what it would have had originally. But, talking about run away, Kyogre cannot from that range. It falls victim to the KO as the Xerneas gets spored immediately after, of course, guaranteeing that sleep turn once again in the subsequent turn.
Yeah, that's the thing. Xerneas being put in check a little bit more by being put to sleep at this particular moment, and Rillaboom coming into the fray. This could be dangerous for that Xerneas, you know, if it's going to have to take some of these big physical attacks, particularly even something like the knockoff there, that's going to be able to, you know, if it goes into the Indeedee, going to be able to pick up the KO against it. Going into the Xerneas, going to be knocking off that Power Herb, so Geomancy won't even be an option for it. And if Rillaboom is running something like the Assault Vest, which we do see on it quite often, you know, the Xerneas is going to have the power of those Moonblasts reduced.
Well, yeah, exactly that. So Thitipong has to make the decision right now which Pokemon to try to switch out in anticipation of what goes where, because the Amoonguss at this point may even just go for another Spore because you don't lose any momentum here, as we do actually see the Torkoal switching in for that Indeedee. So Indeedee wanting to regain its priority over the terrain there, having the Psychic one, as Xerneas will be taking its first turn of sleep, but will it survive? It cannot. Critical hit straight away, smashing this Xerneas out of game 2. A bit of recoil there on the Rillaboom, but Pollen Puff will now go ahead and deal that tiny bit of chip damage onto the Torkoal, but not what Thitipong is wanting to see at all right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, definitely not going to be able to survive against that critical hit. And Torkoal, you know, great being able to switch it in, reset that weather. I like that play, and you know, the Rillaboom, relatively speaking, can't really do too much to you with any of those grassy type moves, but the Amoonguss certainly still has the utility to be able to put you to sleep. So having the Indeedee here to redirect that away is certainly very useful, but the difficulty with Indeedee is it might have won the terrain war in this situation, but it doesn't really have a lot to be able to stop this Rillaboom, particularly if it is the Assault Vest variant.
Yeah, and in this scenario, of course, Torkoal is the way to go for Thitipong. It directly threatens both the Rillaboom and the Amoonguss super effectively, but you want to try to redirect that Spore if possible, because, you know, of course, the Torkoal normally are trained to be the minimum speed so they can take advantage in Trick Room, as we are going to see that indeed go for the Protect. The U-turn from the Rillaboom tries to target it down, but fails to do so, but there it is. The Spore will go ahead and target down this Torkoal, so I think Thitipong had to try to take that sleep turn there and maybe hope to wake up immediately when it can try to threaten whilst the sun's still in play.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Indeedee in a very precarious situation here. Yes, it went for the Protect this turn, trying to go for another one, but to no avail. But Rillaboom just has the utility to be able to deal with it. One U-turn is going to be all it takes to remove that Indeedee from the field. And then you've just got this Torkoal that's taking a little bit of a nap. And you've got the opposing side here going for these Pollen Puffs, which, yes, is doing minimal damage, just chipping away, but it does actually manage to wake up before the Rillaboom has the utility in the next turn to deal anything. Amoonguss going to be taken down, and Rillaboom dealing significant damage. And the critical thing for Rillaboom here is it doesn't have the Amoonguss anymore to go for those Pollen Puffs or to go for any spores, and there really isn't anything Rillaboom necessarily can do to Torkoal to be able to KO it. What a turn of events here.
Honestly, it really is. As the Wood Hammer comes out, it's going to be able to deal a bit of damage onto the Torkoal, at the cost, of course, of that recoil. But the Heat Wave does connect Lu. And in that scenario, I honestly expected the Amoonguss to go for the side Pollen Puff there to try to regain that HP onto the Rillaboom, because you're not going to be dealing much damage at all onto that Torkoal, as of course we did see in the previous turn.
Yeah, and I think as well, just getting that turn 1 wake on the Torkoal was absolutely critical there. Just being able to connect, obviously, the Fire-type moves against 2 Grass-type Pokemon, going to be dealing good damage. And with Heat Wave, sometimes you do have to cross your fingers and hope that it will connect. But thankfully, it was able to, which means we are getting a Game 3, Costa.
Yeah, Game 3. Who would have thunk it? As, of course, we're going to see Thitipong bring the fight now up against Jeongso. So, of course, we do have to make note that there were a couple of instances there where luck was on Thitipong's side. But the thing is, in VGC, you need to try to take advantage of that as best as possible. And to, in the end of the day, push and gain the momentum you can in order to bring this, the game back, essentially, as they have done. Because there are a lot of moments where playing VGC, you may have gotten lucky, but there may be chances that you might throw or, maybe not think things through because you're feeling, oh, okay, I got lucky, I have a lot of momentum on my side, it's going to be fine. But no, you got to try to not underestimate the situation and take advantage as best as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think making sure in this weather war as well to pivot your Pokemon in correctly can be critical towards that endgame. We saw it in game 1 that Kyogre was obviously the victorious Pokemon here, had such an advantage, whereas having that Torkoal in the back for game 2 just meant that he was able to switch things up a little bit more and apply that pressure. Game 2 is coming out exactly the same though. Once again, this combination of the Incineroar and the Amoonguss coming out into the fray. We've seen how strong it can be for Jeongso here. And then for Thitipong, we have got, once again, Indeedee and that Venusaur. So redirection potential here. Yeah,
so same leads as game 2. The real question is, are we going to see the same turn play out? Because we did see that Earth Power from the turn 1 get very lucky and get that special defense drop onto the Incineroar, which was able to kind of negate that Snarl drop.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'll come down, I think, again to that kind of role. I can't imagine there being anything wrong with that Incineroar just going for those Snarls once again, because they're so critical. But Indeedee, again, no reason not to go for a helping hand in this situation. You can go for that Earth Power down into that Incineroar. It does a huge chunk of damage against it. No drop, however, this time. Snarl once again coming out from that Incineroar.
Yeah, Snarl does come out. It will successfully land on both that Indeedee and the Venusaur, and we are expecting the Amoonguss to just go for that side Pollen Puff there, as, of course, it does unfold to be the case, because in this scenario, you just want to try to guarantee a 2-hit KO if you can from Thitipong's side, but given the fact that the Earth Power drop of Special Defense didn't occur this time round, I don't think this Incineroar is going down anytime soon.
Yeah, well, Helping Hand's going to come out once again. I'm going to see if maybe I can just try and get that down onto the Incineroar. Of course, the Amoonguss can't even redirect away moves from that Venusaur, leaving that Incineroar so exposed. It does, of course, survive and is able to go for a powerful Flare Blitz here into that Venusaur. It's enough to remove it from the fray, but the recoil is going to be huge here.
It really will be, and it is enough to pick up the KO as well, should I say, the self-KO, as the Amoonguss is left in a scenario where it's just trying to Pollen Puff yet again, but it is met with nothing.
Yes, I mean, this does make things a little nicer for the Kyogre in the sense that you don't have to deal with this Venusaur anymore. So that's something towards the end game that Jeongso might want to be considering. But then you have to consider that that Torkoal is very possibly lurking in the back with Thitipong, just like you saw in game 2. So Kyogre isn't necessarily going to be the safest to be going for these water-type moves. So potentially needs to be preserved a little bit more. The Xerneas, however, once again in a good position here to possibly try and set up one of those Geomancies with a little redirection help from Indeedee. On the flip side, though, of course, it can just go for that Protect, go for one of those Expanding Forces, try and deal some big damage. But we saw how much the Origin Pulse did to the Indeedee here. It's going to be, quite risky that Indeedee's not going to be around for long to support that Xerneas. If it's going to provide the support for redirection to allow the Geomancy boost, it's going to be now. And that's what we're seeing, Costa.
That is indeed what we're seeing, as Xerneas wants to try to go ahead and gain that bulk, as well as that huge offensive prowess that it is so known for, coupling up so well with that Fairy Aura ability. As in this scenario, if the Indeedee survives, it will be able to redirect that Spore, which is the most crucial thing that Thitipong's trying to opt for. But wait, Lou, we see the reveal of the Calm Mind on that Kyogre. It kind of makes a lot of sense now, having that leftovers as the choice item for that slot. But no Spores coming out here, just a Pollen Puff, which of course may have even been trying to go into its partner there, but got redirected by the Follow Me.
Yeah, possibly he's going for the Pollen Puff here, knowing that the redirection potential was there, and you know that Indeedee has safety goggles, so there's no point going for the Spore. At least with the Pollen Puff, you can deal a chunk of damage, putting it in range of something like the Origin Pulse here. I love that Calm Mind coming out from Kyogre, because obviously you're going to have that little extra slither of protection against these big, powerful special attacking moves from that Xerneas. And again, boosting up your special attack means that as long as you can connect that Origin Pulse into that Indeedee, it's going to be able to go down. You know, Xerneas doesn't share its boost with its partner Pokemon. Indeedee just going to go for the helping hand.
Yeah, so Thitipong trying to go for that surprise KO if they could get it here, but they cannot. That Kyogre is too bulky, especially with that Calm Mind boost, which works so nice for it. But the Origin Pulse comes out, deals a lot of damage onto a +2 special defense Xerneas there. Does pick up the KO onto the Indeedee, which does mean this Amoonguss was so free to successfully get that Spore off onto the Xerneas. So in this scenario, even though Jeongso's Kyogre is at low HP, having that redirection on the field, and that Kyogre at +1, even if, let's say, it doesn't have the rain anymore, is still so good.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the one thing that's nice is Xerneas is sleeping, so that you know you can hit it with another Origin Pulse, as long as it connects, of course, on this next turn. But Torkoal really does put a spanner in the works here by bringing in the Sunshine. Those Origin Pulses are not going to be dealing as much damage, and significantly less considering the fact that Xerneas has got those boosts up. But then you do not want to necessarily switch out your Kyogre when you've got a Calm Mind boost up here. So I wonder if Kyogre's got a few extra tricks up its sleeve. It does avoid the Torkoal, though, which is, of course, unfortunate. Even in the sun, now +1 special attack, that would have been good to get the damage on Torkoal.
Yeah, it really would have been, as we are going to be seeing the Amoonguss going for the Pollen Puff, naturally outspeeding that Torkoal. And even though the Torkoal right now does try to go for the Heat Wave, it's not going to deal much damage at all to the Kyogre, but its main goal is getting rid of this Amoonguss and maybe trying to seal this game off with that Xerneas once it does wake up, if it does.
Yeah, I really want to know what the last Pokemon for Jeongso is in the back here. If it's something like the Rillaboom, this could be really nice because you can, you know, the Xerneas is, you know, in a little bit of a precarious situation. That Rillaboom with the priority and obviously being able to help on the physical side could be really advantageous here. And it leaves your Kyogre free to kind of deal with the Torkoal. Relatively speaking, there isn't a lot that Torkoal can do back to this Kyogre at this stage. It has got its, you know, special defense boosted up by one stage, and it can still deal decent damage to Torkoal in the sun thanks to the Calm Mind boost. We saw Xerneas still taking a nap, and Torkoal there going to be taking just under a third of damage.
Oh, we're going to see the Amoonguss go for Pollen Puff instead of Spore into that Torkoal. Even though it does naturally outspeed it, I would have expected maybe it wanted to try to focus down so it could stay on the field for longer, as we do see the Heat Wave not enough to pick up the KO there, but this may be part of Jeongso's plan here to try to get that Kyogre all the way back up to near 100% HP and maybe get a switch in if they can.
I mean, that's the thing. We know that the Kyogre can take one of those Moonblasts from the Xerneas, so getting it back up to, you know, that's pretty much full HP. Then we know that if the Xerneas does wake up, then Kyogre's going to be able to survive one of those Moonblasts and give Amoonguss the opportunity to go for a Spore. It's just whether, if you're Jeongso here, you want to try and go for that Spore, predicting the wake up, or if you're just going to go for another side Pollen Puff. But it's going to be the Protect from Xerneas.
Yeah, so it does wake up, it does go for that Protect, which does, of course, mean the Ice Beam could not target it down, and the Spore does finally come out from this Amoonguss here. It does target into the Torkoal, forcing it to take sleep here, and of course, that Torkoal does have a chance to wake up the next turn, if it can, but as, of course, the Xerneas right now, its only way to avoid another Spore, if it can, is to go for a double Protect.
Yeah, Jeongso's so in the kind of driving seat here, because the Xerneas is in the awkward situation where it might need to go for something like a Dazzling Gleam here just to try and remove the Amoonguss from the fray, because otherwise it's going to have to take one of these Spores, but then you're not dealing as much with that Kyogre, and Kyogre's going to be really free to go for an Origin Pulse. We do see the Dazzling Gleam remove that Amoonguss from play, but this is the unfortunate thing. It now gives Jeongso the free switch to bring in something like the Rillaboom, and then that's going to apply a great deal of pressure. Origin Pulse did miss the Xerneas though, does connect on Torkoal though.
It does, and I think Tortle was a very crucial. Oh, talk about crucial. We see the wake up from the Tortle, goes for the Stone Edge. Very uncharacteristic move choice there from the Tortle that you don't commonly expect and see there. As of course they do tend to rely on either special attacking offense of all of those fire type moves, or even earth power, or maybe even that body press there. So maybe trying to mark down any sort of Volcaronas, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess any of those kind of fire or flying type Pokemon, it's a really nice way to kind of counter them if Earth Power isn't going to be able to hit, obviously, the flying types. This is where things get difficult, though. Rillaboom coming in can easily go for that Fake Out and allow Kyogre to go for a Nulla Origin Pulse here, and having that priority is going to apply a lot of pressure to that opposing Xerneas. Of course, Kyogre's HP is not in the best condition right now. We know that it has leftovers and grassy terrain is going to be able to help that, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it try and weave in a Protect hero there, but you wouldn't really want to go and waste a Protect when you've got Fake Out on the field, and obviously we only have that for the one turn. So if Rillaboom maybe goes for the Fake Out down into that opposing Xerneas, allowing Kyogre to try and go for an Origin Pulse, gain some recovery, then Protect on the next turn, gain some recovery, it might be in a situation where it can start to take one more of those Moonblasts.
Yeah, and the Fake Out did try to focus down on that Xerneas, but was met with that Protect. As the Origin Pulse does come out, does connect, most crucially, on that Torkoal. Enough to go ahead, pick up the KO, and Lou, this is looking like a masterclass from Jeongso, going ahead and potentially sealing this game off and bringing Korea back in.
Particularly when the Sun has just left the field as well. Those Origin Pulses are going to be able to hit much harder now, and they're going to be single target down against that Xerneas. With the combination coming up from that Rillaboom with something like a Grassy Glide, or even, to be honest, at this stage, you could go for something like the Wood Hammer here, because Xerneas, if it goes for the Dazzling Gleam, we know that both the Pokemon are going to be able to survive this, and Moonblast only targeting down one of those Pokemon. Even if it is Rillaboom, Kyogre's going to be able to go for that Origin Pulse, and if it targets down his Kyogre, might as well go for the Wood Hammer, deal as much damage as possible.
Yeah, definitely. In this scenario, you got to, essentially, as the Grassy Glide does want to try to guarantee that KO if it can with priority, but it does not. And the Moonblast will be coming out, going onto the Rillaboom, but because it is AV, it survives just barely, allowing its partner Kyogre to go ahead, seal this game off with that very chilly, very frosty Ice Beam.
Yeah, and huge congratulations to Jeongso there, being able to take that set 2-1. And I really like the adjustment there. Even though the sun has gone, it's like now's the time for the water type moves to shine. Just go for the Ice Beam, because you're not going to risk that Origin Pulse missing, particularly when it was just on that 2 HP. Ice Beam could easily clean up the game. But what a fantastic set to be able to watch. A really nice battle of the Weather Wars here. And again, a masterclass, I think, in how to play Amoonguss and Incineroar at the beginning of that. And also how to adjust when your opponent is finally able to counter it, like we saw in Game 2.
Well, yeah, exactly that. And I think, pardon me, both of the players, of course, trying to go for their outs there. We saw Thitipong do very well in Game 2, of course. There was that topic of RNG involvement there, but once again, perfect value of that train of having that experience is trying to go forward. They did very well. And then, but of course, Jeongso was able to bring that back. I think Calm Mind Leftovers Kyogre is such an interesting set where essentially you force, like the kind of stall situation. You've got that Rillaboom, both for the grass terrain, so you get even more residual HP recovery over time, but you've got the fake outs, so you've got the constant disruptions there whilst you're allowing it to slowly yet surely set up. And that is exactly what Jeongso did so well in this game, to go ahead and push South Korea 2-1 right now against Thailand. Thailand is in the lead, so they're going to have to try to bring it back as best they can.
Yeah, a fantastic game to be able to watch. And of course, we are now past the halfway point on Friday's broadcast. So we're going to kick it to a very short break, and then we'll be bringing Jamie back to close out the last 2 games with Costa as your commentators. So don't go anywhere.